All right, guys, you're looking at my buddy Ian's 1999 2.5 RS, and yes, it's got an engine swap.
This is my little Subaru-only shop. It's a DIY Subaru channel. It's a channel where all I do is Subaru builds and race Subaru vehicles in motorsport events. It's a DIY themed channel where I walk you guys through the steps to get your Subarus back on the road and hopefully do a little racing of your own. So thanks for checking out the video, guys. I really appreciate it.
Just doing a quick little video, a little walk around here to check out this car because this thing is freaking sweet, guys. And there's a little history on this car. Who knows? Maybe it'll be up for sale at some point in the future. Who knows? Maybe not. This is my buddy Ian's car, and we'll chat with him in a second. So first off, I'll do a little walk around on this thing. As you can see in the back, it's got the JDM clear taillights. It's got these awesome OZ racing wheels. Check these things out. I've always liked this design, and of course the gold and the blue go great together. Looking at a coupe, obviously. Pretty good trim on it. Coming around to the front here, obviously you got the what is that, the later version 5.6 bumper and the fogs. He's got that JDM pink cherry blossom logo right there, as you can see. Looking freaking awesome. And let's go ahead and check out the interior because there's some pretty sweet seats in this car. So this has these GC seats that are all black, and if any of you guys know exactly what model these GC seats came out of, let me know because we're actually curious on them. They're all black and I'm not really sure exactly what they're from. I know they're definitely a GC model, but
maybe STI.
Maybe STI. Let us know what you guys know, if you guys know. Like here, a Momo steering wheel, pretty cool. He's got the stainless steel kind of gauge cluster surround, also a nice little upgrade. You got the aftermarket little shifter right there and shift boot, real clean interior, all black. The 2.5 RS interior looks great, and of course it's got the sunroof and the headliner, and everything's looking really nice in this sucker. We'll go ahead and pop the hood too, get this sucker open. We just went for a nice little Saturday morning drive, and this sucker is running really nice right now. We're basically trying to get the emission monitors to pass their kind of monitoring phase. So we've been doing the age-old method of, or age-old, I guess the protocol that you can find on the internet of like driving up to about 55 miles an hour, keep it at 55 miles an hour for 3 or 4 minutes, and then decelerate down to 20 miles an hour.
That was the challenge.
Which was the challenge because we're on the freeway trying to go 55 miles an hour, and to try to decelerate down to 20 without touching the brake, without touching the clutch, and without touching anything, basically end up blocking the flow of traffic, and it's hard to get down to 20 miles an hour on an on-ramp and like time it all perfectly with the deceleration rate it takes. It's really difficult to do, actually. It's almost like you need to have a backcountry road so you can just like, but the problem is you got to go 55 miles an hour for 3 or 4 minutes. So you got to have a freeway that's got a perfect exit where you can really just decelerate down to 20. And then you're technically supposed to re-accelerate back up to 55 miles an hour for another couple minutes. So having the space and the length and the perfect scenario where you can decelerate to 20 and then re-accelerate up to 55 is actually super challenging.
You know, probably at 1 lane at night.
Yeah, 1 lane at night. At night's probably the best way to do it. I agree. And apparently, when you go through that drive cycle of up to 55, keep it there for a few minutes, down to 20 without touching anything, and back up to 55, that should get your emission monitor check engine codes to basically trip. Meaning, if there is a problem, it'll trip the check engine light. If there isn't a problem, it'll just pass the monitors, and then you'll have no check engine lights. We got to do that on this car first because he's trying to get it to pass bar. And if you guys know, in California, to pass bar, you basically have to have no check engine lights. Your car has to be completely stock, especially with respect to factory ECU with no aftermarket tune on it. And you have to have all the emissions equipment on your car for sure. The stock downpipe, the stock cats. These Subaru engines actually have cats in the downpipe and they have a cat in the uppipe. So just a heads up, if you guys are using an STI cat in your WRX engine, that actually might not pass emissions because you have to have a cat in your uppipe if you have a WRX engine. Now, if you have an STI engine and an STI ECU, you probably will be fine not having a cat in that uppipe. But this is a WRX engine and he has a WRX ECU on this thing. So we have to have all the emissions stuff associated with a WRX engine. That includes the evap stuff and the catalyst and stuff for the you know, basically the tailpipe. Okay, so what are you looking at here? This is a EJ205 motor. Is this a US domestic model?
Yeah.
You know, US domestic model 2 liter. So 02 through 05 WRX engine. Stock, pretty much stock everything. Like
much.
you have to have for the emissions anyways and for the bar inspection.
Yeah.
So that's what you're looking at here. You got the AC on. We need to give a recharge on it, but the AC and all the hoses and all the equipment are you know, installed for the AC. Like you see, stock intercooler, stock recirc valve or blow-off valve. Basically all stock air box. Stock downpipe. You can't really see it right here, but if I kind of zoom down in there, you might be able to see a little bit of stock downpipe, and he's got the stock up pipe.
Well, it took an effort to bring it back to factory specs.
Yeah, because when you got this car, it actually had aftermarket everything on it.
Yep.
So you had to source all the different parts. I know you got parts from a guy in San Diego for a little while.
ECUs. I'm sitting on 4 different ECUs.
4 different ECUs. We went back and forth with the ECU because we're trying to find an ECU that didn't have a aftermarket tune on it.
Yep.
And everybody says that it's a factory ECU, and then you buy a used one, and sure enough, there's an aftermarket tune on it. It's
So
pretty.
I end up like pretty much you buying a factory ECU from a factory.
From the dealer,
Yeah.
from a Subaru dealership,
Yeah.
yeah, which was I think about $680.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
much I bought
Yeah.
for, yeah.
Yeah.
And incidentally, guys, if you have the 2-liter turbo motor, that means you can use any ECU from the US domestic model between 2002 and 2005, because that's where they had the 2-liter turbo motors. But the ECUs are slightly different year to year. And the 2002 ECU actually has less, less sensors that it's checking, and it makes it a little bit easier to basically pass these inspections, these bars. So if you have a choice, I would suggest not getting a 2005 ECU, get a 2002 ECU if it's available, because it basically should run the engine the same. And if you're going to get an aftermarket tune at a later time, you can still flash a 2002, 4, 5, or 6. Any of the ECUs can be flashed, but it's easier to pass the inspections with an earlier one. And the steps here are that this car needs to be taken to a Subaru dealership, and the Subaru dealership needs to plug in this ECU into their database and verify that the ECU has the original tune that the ECU had on it from the factory. So if you buy a new one from a dealership, you're guaranteed that will pass no problem. And I believe
you're contacting Subaru and getting from Subaru this special number seen on whatever number that Subaru has in database.
Yep.
To verify that the tune is actually factory tune.
Okay.
Each ECU has a different number.
Yep. And what's that called again? Isn't there a certain, like a CID?
CID, right?
It's a CID number, and they charged. You mind me sharing how much you spent for it? How much they charge just for the CID verification? $200. So it's not too crazy expensive, just $200. And
when you do it number of times, it gets really.
It adds up if you got to do it 5 times.
Exactly. I did 5 times. You know, until I bought the actual factory ECU, then it came back with the proper validation that this is factory CID.
Yeah. So after hearing all about his whole shenanigans about having to go back multiple times, misadventures of going back to the dealer 5 times, that's when I actually did buy one used ECU, but I didn't even risk it taking it to the dealer. I just figured, you know what, it's probably going to have a tune on it. It always does, especially when I buy stuff from Sacramento. Sorry guys in Sacramento, but everything I buy in Sacramento ends up being not what was advertised. And so I ended up buying a factory one, a new one from a dealership too. And I haven't taken mine to the dealer, but this car actually did go through the dealership already, and he does have, I believe, you do have a verification from the dealer that this car has a factory tune, a formal letter.
That, this ECU been verified with the Subaru and it has a factory CID.
Yeah, and it's on like a Subaru letterhead probably.
Pretty much.
And I think the next step is that we're going to take that letter with a Subaru letterhead verifying that this is a factory ECU. We'll take this to the bar inspection office. Making
sure that we have no check engine lights coming up.
And we got to clear that first.
Yeah.
So that's actually what we've been doing this morning. We went some drives. We're trying to make sure these emission monitors pass. We'll get them cleared if there are any. There might be an O2 sensor that needs to be replaced on this car. So we'll replace that, get it all cleared, and then we'll take that letter from the Subaru dealership, make an appointment with the state bar office, which is the Air Resources Board bar office here in the East Bay, Northern California, and we'll show up for that appointment. You haven't gone to one of those appointments yet, have you?
I went once.
Oh, you did once. Okay, what's how does it work? Like you show up, what happens?
You show up, the guy hooks up whatever this equipment he has. He runs for 10-15 minutes. Then he comes back, with saying what was wrong. In my case, everything was okay. The smoke check passed and there was no check engine lights, but he found that it contains non-factory ECU. tune. So therefore, I was, I didn't get an approval.
Yep.
And there was specific, basically he sent me an email and give me a letter saying that the car needs to have factory seal in it to pass the smoke, to pass the bar certification.
Okay. And how much do they charge for that? Is it?
Well, nothing, like $20.
Oh, so it's super cheap.
It's super cheap.
That
right?
part's super cheap.
Yeah.
And how long, was it a long wait time once you called the office to make an appointment?
A week.
Oh, it's like even a week. That's great.
You go
During
there,
COVID, maybe it's a little different, but because this is pre-COVID, right?
It's a pre-COVID.
Yeah.
It was a week wait time. You come in, it takes like 15 minutes.
Not bad at all. Wow. I mean, so for how much value having a bar inspected car gives to a car, especially on the for the resale value of the car,
No,
it's really not that much effort if you can get all these little issues figured out.
No, basically, it's day and night, meaning the car that hasn't passed bar certification, it means not smoke check eligible, it not pass a smoke check, so therefore legally you cannot sell it.
Yeah.
You can sell it only as a spare parts, but not as a car that can be registered and can be driven. Once you get the bar certification, that is a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
I would say that increases value twice as much.
Wow. Yeah, I would believe it, especially for a highly sought after model.
Pretty much.
Maybe not if it was like an Outback wagon, but for a coupe GC, that's like the highly sought after, most collectible Subaru on the market.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So getting that bar inspection is huge for California
So it
drivers.
makes sense to invest all these resources and money into making sure that it passes bar certification. Therefore, because then value double or triple.
Yep. Yep. Because what happens is with that bar certification, I believe they actually give you a little tag that you're going to put affix in your engine bay.
Yep.
And you can take your car to any smog certified station. In California, I think it's called a STAR certification, which is like the gas stations you see that have an advertisement for smog. Any gas station can be certified, any repair shop can be certified, and once they get that state certification to be a smog station, they can tie into the DMV computers in California when they do their smog tests, and they'll see a car that has gone through bar, they'll see the little bar tag, and they basically treat the car as if it is the car that is a swapped engine. So if the little tag says that this is approved to be a 2002 WRX engine, when they do the smog test, they basically treat this car as if it's a 2002 WRX.
Correct.
And they don't even pay attention to it being a different year.
Yep.
One little caveat on that, and I was doing some research on this, if you're going to do a swap into a car in California, the swapped engine has to be of a newer model than the car itself. So if you have a 1999 Subaru like this one is, you couldn't put a JDM or any engine from an earlier year, 98, 97 or earlier. And instantly I mentioned JDM. This car is also OBD2. Well, so in Japan and in some other markets, in 1999, the engines weren't actually OBD2 yet. And so if you're going to do a swapped engine, you have to have the year be correct, and it has to be consistent with whether or not it's OBD2 or OBD1. You can't put an OBD1 engine in an OBD2 chassis. That doesn't work in California either.
Yep.
So that's basically it on the OBD2 stuff and smog certification. I guess we'll wrap this one up because he's holding the hood up. We have no hood prop right now or hood struts, so we're going to get some, either a prop or some struts in this thing soon so he doesn't have to hold the hood every time.
But basically, it's very easy to fix the car once all those major issues are fixed, like check engine light and bar certification, because once it's done, everything else is more or less cosmetic.
Yep, cosmetic. And incidentally, on these cars, another thing that's easy to deal with once you get through the hurdles of the bar inspection and certification and getting all smogged and titled and everything like that, these Impreza coupes are so easy to maintain for the other maintenance items on the car, because all the parts in this car are identical to the other GC, GM, or GF bodied Subaru Imprezas from 1993 through 2001 for the most part. And what I mean by that is, like, if you end up needing something like a charcoal canister, which is part of the evap emission stuff, which is what I needed for my 98 RS, as a matter of fact, I was able to find that charcoal canister at a salvage yard and pay like $10 for this charcoal canister rather than try to buy it new. Or if you need some kind of miscellaneous small clip, or if you need some miscellaneous small brake part or speed sensor.
Of the car.
That's the beauty of the car.
Compare it with Porsche or BMW or anything else.
Yeah.
Provides similar driving experience.
Yep.
Night and day.
Night and day. And it's like the availability of parts from the braking system, the steering system, the suspension system, the evap system, all these little pieces, the AC compressor, the AC lines, the alternator, the connectors that connect to alternator, the wiring pieces, all these parts. If you can go to a salvage yard and get any model, the wagon, the sedan, the four-door, you know, any part that will fit those car will fit your coupe too, which is really a nice thing about these coupes.
And
you
the
know,
shape. Don't forget the shape, you know.
well, the looks and the aesthetic, yeah. I mean, Ian and I have talked about this many times. You know, I think Subaru just nailed the body and the design on this car. And let's just be honest, guys.
To me, this is as classic as 911.
I agree.
It's in the same league of 911.
I totally
Maybe
agree.
not appreciated yet.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure we're getting there, where this car would be recognized as 911 from the historical and from emotional point of view.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And it's a shame that Subaru didn't have that insight, because it's a really interesting story how Porsche has had a lot of pushback over the years for changing their body lines of their cars, and that they kept this classic style of the 911 over decades and decades, whereas other manufacturers from Japan, from Germany, from the United States, very few manufacturers out there, maybe with an exception to the Volkswagen Beetle that lasted for decades and decades, the first generation Beetle, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But very few manufacturers find a design that they're willing to stay behind for decades and decades like that, and just make incremental improvements to mechanical components, but not actually change the look and the design of the car. In my opinion, I think Subaru made a mistake by thinking that this car needed to be updated as far as the body and design, unlike Porsche with the 911. I think if Subaru would have done what Porsche did with the 911 and just kept this body style and really refined this body style more, rather than totally change it in 2002 with that bug eye, I don't know. I think Subaru might have done better overall in the long run, but that's subjective. It's just my opinion. I mean, I guess there's some collectible value knowing that these were only made until 2001 and that was when it ended. But in my opinion, it was kind of downhill from 2001 with each incremental body style. They got more bland, more generic, more just kind of, you know, less exciting, less character, and they really just kind of looked like all the other Japanese manufacturers out there. And, you know, starting with probably 2015 with the VA chassis Impreza, that's when Subaru really just went full bland Japanese design rather than have anything that was unique and special to them. So
this is
my
why
opinion.
Cars like that will just appreciate in value.
Yep.
This is why they hold our heart, you know.
Yeah, it's true.
We'll see.
It's true.
This is why they're asking insane amount of money for 22B.
Right. I mean, these things are going for 300,000 plus now. 300,000. And how different is a 22B from this car? This car has a swapped WRX engine, 2-liter. The 22B has a 2.2 liter, but that's a small increase. I mean,
well, it has all those bits and pieces that make it 22B. But from regular Joe like you and me, this is my version of 22B, you know, and this is more rare than any 911.
Yep, totally.
And we'll get more rare.
Yeah, we'll get more rare. Yeah, one of my videos from a couple of years ago, I called this my 22B, poor man's 22B, because that's really what it is, right? I mean, you don't have the wide fenders, you don't have some of the really nice kind of custom 22B pieces, but what we're looking at here is virtually identical to a 22B. You got a turbo motor, you have a 5-speed, you have all-wheel drive. It's actually in the correct color for the 22B, because the 22Bs were only in this Rally Ridge Blue Pearl.
So same experiences driving, maybe not crazy fast, but the seating position and instrument cluster and experience, maybe 8/10 or maybe 7/10 of 22DB. But man, you know, it's not 300 plus.
When you look at the price,
exactly,
it's a deal. Yeah, if I'm getting 7/10 to a 22B here, but I'm only paying 1/20th of the price, to me that seems like a good deal.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll wrap this one up here today. Ian, really appreciate you showing the car, giving us a little overview on it. We're getting this car bar inspected, you know, and we'll go from there. And we'll do future videos on this car for sure. So keep an eye out for it.
Yep.
Appreciate it, Ian. Thanks.
Thank you.
Later, guys.